Whilst Tinubu, APC and their minions are making noise all over the place, spreading propaganda and calling it leadership, intimidating opponents who criticize them, because those opponents mean well for Nigeria than they, APC people, could ever imagine. Real leaders, like in Ghana and Ethiopia, who have the capacity to make things happen, are doing real work to move their economies forward and make lives more bearable for their people.
So let's get into it. So we start in West Africa with Ghana, one of the continent's most compelling comeback stories of 2025. After a period of severe stress, inflation, which had climbed above 50% at its peak, it eased sharply through the year and is now in single digits. The CD stabilized, debt restructuring moved forward, and a renewed focus on macro discipline helped restore investor confidence. So for many, Ghana has become a clear example of how difficult reforms can begin to deliver results. It's one of your top picks, Boson. Why did you choose Ghana?
Exactly. Because when I look through in the run-up to the elections or the comeback of President Mahama for a second, and just like President Trump, he was the president before President Nana Akufo-Addo, and during the campaign, he was really speaking about how much more President Akufo-Addo's administration could have done. He was really upset with the debt overhang in inflation in Ghana and the large size of the government and all of that. And as a business journalist, I was thinking it was just saber rattling. He was just looking for making political campaigns. And then he got into office, President Mahama, and we're just talking about the 12 months of President Mahama, and he has been able to deliver inflation to single digits. The cedi become one of the best currencies, not just in Africa, but around the world, and has been able to sit the creditors down to the table and have been able to secure deals that is beginning to give Ghana. It's not Uhuru yet, as far as Ghana is concerned. But as far as the macroeconomic fundamentals are concerned, he's able to spruce the various ministries and parastatals together and deliver a leaner government that will begin to deliver the goods to the people, to the Ghanaians.
And, you know, he's done this in such a short space of time. What was the one thing he changed, and why such rapid transformation?
I think it's all about commitment and the fact that while he was in office, he saw that a lot more could be done. The size of the government was bigger. There's a whole lot that the bureaucracy should be able to deliver. Now, this is gold shining all through 2023, 2024 to 2025. This is the country going crippled by huge bureaucracy and what have you, and inflation tearing at about 30, 40, 50%. Hello, Ghana is going to go down the drain. So he came to the office shooting all through all the cylinders.
He really was guns blazing.
And he has really delivered.
I mean, Rotas, what do you think, Ghana? Any thoughts on Ghana quickly before we move to next?
It's been a great turnaround. And, I mean, look at Ghana's stock markets, up by 77% so far.
One of the best performing ones in Africa. Interesting.
So it's been an incredible turnaround.
Very interesting. Yeah. And I know you also chose Ethiopia. Ethiopia is such a fascinating story because they've gone down this liberalization mode.
Look at Addis Ababa. Oh, the new...
Is it one of your favorite cities?
I think Addis is trying to take over from Kigali in terms of the aesthetics, in terms of... The first time I was in Ethiopia was during President Jonathan when we went for the World Economic Forum for Africa in 2012. And it was such a rustic city, as it were. But then they were beginning to dig around, lay some pipelines and whatever, and I said, well, maybe something is going to emerge. And Ethiopia has really proved to be the home of the African Union, and that Horn of Africa, an iconic city. Look at the images everywhere you see Ethiopia. But more important, the Prime Minister who was then in office, and I think I forgot his name now, died in office, and Prime Minister Abiy came in, and he started implementing 100 reforms that were in place more than a decade ago. So the reforms that you've seen in Ethiopia were not brought in place by the current Prime Minister. It was a playbook that had been set by former Prime Minister.
And which one of those reforms have stood out the most to you?
It is the financial market, for example.
The liberalization
of the financial markets, the currency, the exchange rate flotation. Today, the bearer is doing about 185 to the US dollar, for instance. They just did a $50 million today of weekly auction. They've opened up the banking sector to foreign and international investors.
Yeah.
Standard Bank of South Africa is back in Ethiopia, got a relicensing. Then they're also working on a new calibration, Basel II and Basel III capital framework, which was announced yesterday, December the 15th, to have a new capital structure for all the banks in Ethiopia. They set up a new stock exchange, set up a new securities and exchange
commission. And they've done the diaspora investment.
They've done the diaspora investment. But the biggest story for me was the Renaissance Dam. It shows how much Africa can leverage its own home and diaspora money to build a $8 billion dam. Incredible story how Ethiopians had faith in Prime Minister Abiy's administration, and that they were sending money home. And this money did not go into any private pockets.
It went into
that particular dam that will be delivering between 2,000 to 4,000 megawatts. And hold on a second, a few days ago, almost 6 countries around Ethiopia will be getting their power supply from that dam.
Incredible story. I really love the diaspora investment infrastructure. That model should be replicated across. But Zambia is also really fascinating. You picked it. And recently they actually got pulled out of junk status, right? Default, right?
Yes.
What stardust did they sprinkle there?
The G20 framework issue for Zambia was amazing. You know, it took 3 years or more to be able to get to the table, to get the creditors to the table. Zambia was becoming a basket case like Zimbabwe next door. All right, so they got the debt to deal with. So President Ichilema, of course, is a billionaire businessman. So what he did, one of the first things he did was to bring all the copper belt, the copper companies and all of you, bring everybody back, because nobody was ready to put a single dime in Zambia any longer for copper, and they were going elsewhere.
Right.
So he was able to bring them back to the table and restructure the holding company for all the royalties and assets of Zambia into that company, and make sure that all that money goes to that company on the stock exchange. As at the month of November, that company was worth $1 billion US. Copperbelt itself, which is the biggest copper investor in Zambia, was $1.2 billion a listed company. So when you look at Lusaka Stock Exchange, the Zambia Stock Exchange, where Dangote has a cement and UBA has a very strong subsidiary. When you look at today, that stock exchange has about additional $3 billion this year alone, just because